Okay, hello everybody. This is Santa Jerry from Santa Jerry's Switch Adapted Toys, and I had a request to figure out how to modify one of these learning resources recordable answer buzzers. So I was trying to give some advice based on a couple of pictures I had been sent and some discussion that was taking place with the person who was trying to adapt it, and decided that it'd probably best to just go ahead and buy one, open it up, and see if I could figure it out, because we weren't coming up with the right answers before. So I've got that. Now what I've discovered is if you're going to try and make your own switches for switch adapted toys, do not buy or get recordable answer buzzers, and I'll show you why in a moment. So I've made videos before. I've done the learning resources game buzzers. I'll link to that video and open them up, and here's the components inside for how to do it. I'm not going to adapt this one. I'm just pointing this out to say that in my previous video the components are the same, so there's no changes to how to adapt this one. A couple of contact points, you clear some stuff off. It's doable. It's not the easiest or the best, but it's doable. And the reason I say it's not the best is because you're soldering to the circuit board in a couple of places, but if you do it correctly, you can make a reliable button. I don't particularly care for these dome buttons, dome switches. So learning resources, the regular answer buttons, not the recordable ones. Previous video shows how to do the teacher's choice, and again I've got them here, and I wanted to confirm that nothing has changed too awfully much between what my previous video was and what's currently being offered. They didn't change the circuits very much. So it is updated for 2022, but it's also similar to the previous video in that it has one of these block switches on the circuit board, and once opened up, remove all the parts that you don't need, wires, etc. Scratch the circuit board to isolate your switch, solder it up. This makes a very good option for switch adapted toys, making hacking your own. So the teacher's choice is still a good option. Also on the market, we're going to set this aside because this is again the one of topic, is something, I can't remember what these are called. I'm going to link to these in the description. These are recordable talking buttons also. Not the same as that. You open them up, they've got a different appearance to it, slightly smaller switch, and I adapted this one up. Get it out of here, put all the components in. It has an LED light that would have been in here and light up when it was done. I removed all of these components. More than that, yes. I always remove the battery contacts from the battery case, battery compartment, so that people don't get confused about needing batteries in it. I removed the brain circuit from it. There was an LED light that was in it, removed that, wires and the like. And it requires scratching on, again, you want to isolate this part of the switch right here. That's all you need. And so you don't want any interference from anything around it. The chip was setting across here. I removed it. I scratched the circuit board to make sure that there was no contacting anywhere. Scratched it here, again, no contacts, and also over here, and soldered to just this side of the switch to put our cable on. That's a very reliable one. Easy to do because your contacts and solder points are proud. They're standing up. Can get to that pretty darned easy. And then when you reassemble it, this tab contacts that, and it makes it a very nice and very easy hack. So this is, again, I don't remember the name of this, but again, I'll link it below. Moving on here, this is a nice bulk pack. Previously, these other ones were available in packages of 4, and you got those for, you'll see on the Amazon link how much they cost for a pack of 4. This is a pack of 12. And it was a little more expensive, but you're getting 12 switches. This switch is one of the easiest to adapt. Again, we've got a foam that holds return pressure. This is the spring, if you will, to it. And it also has one of those, I've got cabling here. It has one of those button switches on top. Nice. And you solder to these 2 points on one side of that. And again, you can see here that I have removed some printed circuit activity. Do not want any interference. Some people would say you don't need to bother, but I have had them where you get all of it done, you put it back together, and some little bio feed or micro feed comes across it and it interferes. This was the circuit, the chip, and here's the components that were removed from it. Again, battery contacts, I'll pull them out. I don't want any confusion about batteries. The microchips damaged it. I just pry it off the board with the same knife I was pointing everything out with here. A little tiny, I don't know, diode or something that was on the board, and the wires. So, whoop, dropped it. So this one here is a very good a switch to adapt. I can go through this on how to do it, but this was the one that opened up this discussion at this time, was the Learning Resources Recordable. And I discovered, let's see, we don't need the box anymore, I set it over here. I discovered that this has characteristic that is far beyond most people's ability. I had trouble soldering this on. I'm not an expert solderer, but when you open these things up, you want to find big contacts. You want to find easy to connect contacts. So if you can solder your wire onto where a solder point is existing on the board, boy, that's wonderful. And I had one on this outside track. Comes down to this outside, and it was a good solder point right here at the very end. I could have soldered it on there, but when I was cleaning up the circuit board, I accidentally broke the contact. I scratched it. So I broke the contact and I had to scratch and mount to the board here. So this is one place that it would go. Here's the problem with this board. This tip down button is a dome button, just like on the other learning resources, except they put a pad on it, and it's held down by a piece of tape. So we're going to pry it up, flip it back, so that we can see what the 2 contact points are when they press the switch and activate it. The contact is to make cross this big pad with these pads, these outside 4, and when that gets crossed, the switch activates the toy. So this little tiny circle here would come down, contact that. All 4 points are touching here, and voila, works perfect. Now, to turn this into a switch adapted toy device, you need to put your cables on it. They made this so that, I'm going to take this out of the package. I'll delete this if necessary. But I want you to see what you open when you open these up. What do you see that you have to get through to get to that point? And this is where the problem was when I was discussing that with this person who was trying to fix them. If I'd have opened these up earlier, it would have been easier, but these are organic videos. They kind of take a little life of their own as we work along. Okay, so that really wasn't too long. When you open it up, this is what you've got. This is what you're looking at. And when you look at this, you see that there's those 4 pads that we can see here clearly. The circuit brain, and where I soldered on there, where you need to solder your wire, you can't even see it. I mean, it's a little tiny thread that goes underneath the pad. You can't get to it. I couldn't get to it. To clean it off and to solder the wire on and be assured that it was working, I had to flip that back and gain access to it. And then I tried several times. The solder was too tall, so it made contact with this metal. So the moment that I put it over here, it already was contacting. So I had to resolder it and feather it out, and it was very difficult for me to do it. If I were doing this on a regular basis, I would not use the recordable ones at all. It's just way too much finessing to try and get it to work. So that's the contact point. When I post this back over to that individual to see if we can help get it working, that's the contact point. And you got to be able to get to it, and the only way to get to it is to remove that tape. Now, you tape it back down, put a piece of clear tape over the top of it, that's done. But you really got to finesse that soldering. So I'm just going to set all this back into here. Oh, and then the parts that I removed from that were extensive. I busted a whole bunch of stuff off the back. I got the speaker out of it. A bunch of stuff that was there, and it was kind of not one that I want to do. Not one that I recommend. We're trying to make these easy for people, and let's do that. So I'm going to go back to this one, and I apologize. When I was showing this one off, the package of 12, I didn't. You're probably wondering, hey, what are they called, Santa? What type are they? They are a Jerify, Jerify 12 pack. They come in, you buy them, you get 2 colors. They're recordable buttons. You get 6 blue ones, 6 red ones. And again, when you open these up, I'm impressed with how simple this would be to do. Scratch the surfaces, contact those 2 after you remove all the wires. I remove all the battery contacts. So I highly recommend these, where you're going to get a good value and it'll work. So if you want to do some tinkering, Okay, so we're going to hack this Jerify. We're going to hack this Jerify. These are the ones you get 12 for a pack. And I'm going to show how comfortable it is to do these. Let's get some light over here and see if that either helps or reflects back. And we're going to, all we need is that switch here in the center, and we're going to scratch some components so that we can get, oops, moving the camera there. We're going to scratch some components so that we can isolate this switch and use it. So let's pop this apart. Isolating the components. We're going to cut the battery connectors and get them off. So that red and black wire goes away. Garbage. Turn it a little bit here. We're going to cut the speaker wires and get them out of there. Again, it's speakers on this is not being used. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit to help. And if I do this, I need to make sure that I do not move this out of frame. Okay, so let's make a little more room. And this becomes where the video takes place. Good deal. Keep right there, Santa. So we are going to connect up our cable. I started removing the battery contacts. So it's this side, right? Alright, we're still in frame. And I wanted to do connection with my, on these 2 points right here. Is that right? Yep, these 2 points right here is where I'm going to put the wires from our cable down. So we can take off the chip, pry it off of there. That becomes garbage. And I want to isolate the switch from all of these other components. And on those components, we're going to scratch the circuit board here. And I'm scratching that down to where I see circuit board, and I know I'm through all these green and silver and whatever contacts and copper contacts. I'm going to remove this chip that's on here. Okay. Any scratches to that board is not going to matter. It's just going to help us isolate. I've got a chip here. Let's print it onto there. Let's turn this over. Get rid of those bits. And that's good. Okay. So in scratching it, we're going to make sure this is clear in this area. Again, I don't want any potential leakage of connector or circuitry going. And then over here, I'm going to scratch here. This is something that I have just, it's an assurance to me that I know that the switch that we're saving is isolated, okay? So this is what we've got now. the light back up onto it. So we've got this switch isolated. This one here is not using it, not using this side at all. We could, but I'm not going to. It's a 50-50 preference. This is isolated, isolated, isolated. Great. So, and these are isolated from each other. So we're going to solder our wires to these two. So I've got a hole in the, I made a hole in here for my wire to go through. I'm going to run this cable. This is a stereo cable. Stereo cables have 3 wires in them. And those 3 wires are, and this one, and do not think this is a standard. They don't care what color wire they put in. This just happens to be a red, a yellow, and a white. Okay, move this back into place here. Red, yellow, and white. And I'm going to strip the wires so that we can expose what we've got. I'm going to zoom out. Camera's going to move a little bit, I'm sure. I have a little tester box that I use, and it's marked with a TSR, which stands for tip, sleeve, ring. And when you look at a cable, okay, you can see here on this cable there is the tip, the ring, and the sleeve. The tip is one side of our contact, and the ring and the sleeve are the other side of the contact. On a mono cable, these are combined. You don't see that black line in there. These are just one piece, and this is the second piece. So in order to make this standard to the industry for mono cables, we need to make sure that our wiring allows for only for the tip to be activated when it hits the ring. On this one here, yellow and red activates, so that's going to activate the toy. Red and white activate, that will activate the toy. White and yellow do not activate. When I say activate here, we're not activating a toy, but we're using my switch. This works the same. If you had a plug it into a switch adapted toy, and you can get the same, you can test this the exact same way. You want to combine the 2 wires off of a stereo cable with whatever, so that the toy does not activate. That's your goal. That makes it a mono cable. So I'm going to combine the white and the yellow on this cable. And again, don't trust the colors. They don't mean anything except to the manufacturer. The light has not come on. When I touch the red to my now combined white and yellow here, both lights come on, and that means that this is now a mono cable. So let's turn on my soldering iron and get this warmed up and solder these together. Everything's still in frame. Yes, good. Okay. Alright, we've got the wire is tinned. Tinning the wire is very important. It makes it so much easier to lay these things down onto your contacts. Okay. So through here we're going to tie a strain relief in it. Strain relief is important. I know it looks like a knot, but believe me, that is a strain relief. It relieves the strain that will not come out or pull out of there. Very important to have that, otherwise you're pulling on your soldering contacts. Okay, Again, we're going to lay this wire down on these 2 points here. And here's my tweezers to hold that, the reverse tweezers. Solders it up to the one side. You hold it long enough that the solder cools, and got a good tight, good connection. Do the same thing on the other side. When you pick it up and shake it around, you know that the contact's good, okay? That didn't pop off. Press the button. And no lights are on, so we know that there's no feedback and interference off the circuit board. So that's how you adapt the... So we put that back together and match up. There's some points on here to help you match it up to get it back together. If you don't put this in right, it will be pinched and it won't be smooth movement, and it will affect how you can use it. You won't be happy, or it just won't be good. This also lines up. There's a tab and a notch that lines up, and the cable's going to be out of the way if you position your system right. And that is now adapted. Okay, if I was to put the screws in it, we strip it out. So that's how you adapt the this box full of Jerify or Jerify or whatever. I'm not sure how you say that, but that's the spelling for that that switch. All right, thank you. So if you like these videos, please hit the like button. That helps the YouTube algorithms know that it's a video worth watching. And subscribe. I make a lot of videos on how to adapt toys for special needs children, how to adapt switches, and you can keep up on them, and you'll be notified as quick as I post another one. So thank you so much. You have a wonderful day. This is Stan Switch Adapted Toys.